If you just got your first client and you have absolutely no idea what to do next, don't worry because I'm going to show you the exact 7-day onboarding framework that I use to look professional and deliver real results. I had a friend connect me with a barbershop owner who asked if I could run his Facebook ads. I said yes, and then I realized I had absolutely no onboarding process, no plan, no clue what to do on how to get started. But thankfully, I came up with a plan and ended up generating over 800 bookings for him. All right, so I'm going to show you the exact 1 week system, which is how to research their business in 48 hours without looking clueless, the 1 week strategy doc that gets client buy-in and protects you from scope creep, and the quick win delivery method that builds trust before you even get them results. First, you need to understand why week number 1 matters so much. Over the last couple of years, I've used this exact system to onboard tons of clients. And the pattern I've noticed is this. The clients who follow this week 1 framework have a 90% retention rate after 6 months. And the ones who just entirely wing it, roughly 40% are gone by just month 3. The thing is, the difference isn't the results. It's the trust you build in week 1. So let me show you what happens when you don't have a system. Let's say you charge $2,000 a month. You land a client, week 1, you're disorganized, there's no clear plan, no communication, and your customer starts to get nervous. But it gets even worse because now they're questioning everything that you do in week 2 and 3. They're not responsive, they're second guessing your decisions, and you're spending hours on calls trying to reassure them. And then it gets even worse because by week 4, they just fire you. You made $2,000 from that client, but you spent 60 hours trying to save the relationship. And now you have to go out and find another client. But the first client could have been worth $24,000 over that year, but you only got $2,000, all because you didn't have a system for week 1. So here's the exact system that you can use to prevent this. All right, so the first thing you have to do is learn everything you can about their business. And I'm not just talking about the marketing stuff. So most beginners, they'll jump into the tactics of, hey, let's launch some ads, let's start posting some content, doing some SEO. All of this is wrong. The thing is, if you don't understand their business, their goals, their customers, their current situation, you're just going to waste time and money on stuff that doesn't matter at all or stuff that just won't work. So here's what you do on day 1 and day 2. Step 1 is to send a client questionnaire. It could just be something as simple as a Google form with 15 to 20 questions. Here are some of the questions you could ask. What does success look like 90 days from now? Now, this gets you an idea of what their actual goal is. Then you could ask, who is your ideal customer? This could be things like demographics, pain points, where they hang out, just everything you can find out about their ideal customer and who they are. You could also ask, who are your top 3 competitors? Because this is who you're going to be stealing your ideas from. What marketing are you currently doing? This is so you don't duplicate your efforts. You could also ask them what's worked well in the past and what hasn't. This will help you learn from their history and just figure out what not to do. What's your average customer worth and how long do they stay for? This is you trying to understand the metrics of their business, their LTV, how much each client is actually worth to them. And then step 2 is to research their competitors. When I said this to my barbershop client, for example, I learned that his ideal customer was about a 25 to 45-year-old working professional, and his biggest competitor was a franchise barbershop that looked really corporate. They tried running Facebook ads before, but it didn't work because they just basically boosted posts randomly. And his average customer was worth about $45 a visit, and they tend to come back about 6 to 8 times per year. Now, this information completely changed my strategy. For each competitor, I document the following. What does their Instagram content look like? Meaning I'll take a bunch of screenshots of all their posts, find out if they're currently running Facebook or Instagram ads. You can do this super easily in the Meta Ad Library. What does their Google My Business profile look like? What does their website look like? What kind of copy do they use on their website? Meaning the headlines, the offer, the call to actions. What kind of reviews are their clients leaving? What do people love? What do people hate? And then I put all this together in just a simple Google Doc with a bunch of screenshots. The real life example of the barbershop is that I found out that his competitors were posting generic haircut pictures. There was no personality. None of them were running ads consistently. You know, they'd probably dabbled in Google ads or whatever in the past. Their Google business profiles had 3 to 4 star ratings because they had slow service. Now, all of this shows me exactly how I need to position him differently. Step number 3 is to document their baseline. Before you change anything, you need to capture where they are right now. Meaning you need to take screenshots of their current social media follower accounts, their post engagement rate, if you have access to Google Analytics for their website traffic, if you have access to any of their ad performance, like their Google Ads platform, their Meta ads. Later, you're going to show them the improvement. Even if the numbers are small, showing progress keeps clients. If my barbershop client, he didn't have Google Analytics set up, so so there was no website data, and they hadn't really had any successful ad campaigns in the past that I could reference. This gave me a good idea of their baseline with lots of room for improvement. Now, I can slowly start improving and actually moving the needle, which is what matters. And this is why most agencies fail. They skip the research phase. They just jump straight into tactics and they waste 3 weeks and $2,000 on ads that just don't work, all because they didn't understand the business. All right, so now you've done all the research. Day 3 and 4 are about turning that research into an actual plan and getting the client's approval. This is what I like to call the cover your ass move. You need to gather as much as you can in writing before you start spending any of their money or making any major changes. You're going to create a one-page strategy document. Just keep it really simple. You're going to explain their current situation in 2 to 3 bullet points, explaining where they are now and where they want to go, their competitive advantage, meaning what makes them different from their competitors based on all the research you did, what are their 90-day goals, and these should be things that are actually measurable. So I like to use 3 specific goals with numbers, for example. Like let's say one of the things is to increase their Instagram followers from 87 to 500, or to generate 15 new leads per month. Then you're going to outline the one channel or tactic you're going to be starting with and why you're starting there. And then also make sure to let the client know what you're not going to be doing. These are going to be 2 to 3 things that you could do in month 1, but that you won't be doing. And then you're going to explain why. And usually this reason is because you're going to try to test one channel at a time and focus all your energy on moving the needle on one metric. For my barbershop client, for example, my strategy doc said that their 90-day goals were to generate 500 plus new customer bookings through Facebook and Instagram ads, and to get a minimum 3x return on ad spend. Now, what we're not going to do, for example, is run Google ads or TikTok ads. We want to nail the meta ads first before expanding across other platforms. Next is the approval call. This is where you're going to schedule a 30-minute Zoom call, share your screen, and walk them through the strategy document. This does 3 things. Number 1 is see that you've been doing your homework, so you actually look more professional. Number 2, this lets them ask questions or make changes so you can collaborate and get them to actually buy into your plan and agree with it. Step 3 is to actually get their approval in writing. On my call with the barbershop owner, for example, he loved it. The only thing he wanted was to make sure that we could actually track the bookings and attribute them correctly to the right ads and campaigns. So all I did was add a simple tracking setup to the plan. And now we're actually all aligned and agree on what the plan is going to be. After the call, always send a follow-up email of everything you guys discussed in the call and what the confirmed strategy is going to be. This proves in writing what you guys discussed. That way there's no surprises and no scope creep. This strategy document acts as your insurance policy. When the client gets nervous in week 3 and says, well, why aren't we doing this thing or running Google ads or whatever, you can just point to the document and explain that this is the plan that you guys both agreed on. That way, there's no scope creep or confusion. Now, here's the most important part of the first week, which is showing them progress fast. You have to deliver something visible in the first 7 days. And it doesn't have to necessarily be crazy results. It's way too early for that. But you have to show them some progress. Something they can see and say, yeah, they're actually doing their job and the thing they said they were going to do. Now, here's some examples of these quick wins that you can deliver in just 2 or 3 days. For social media clients, you can edit and schedule 7 posts. You can optimize their bio, their profile, create a bunch of story templates that they can reuse. If you're trying to get them more reviews, you could set up a simple SMS automation that asks clients after they've paid or signed up on their form or whatever to go write a review. You can set up all the tracking for their ad account. You can write a bunch of ad copy variations, make a bunch of creatives, build out the campaign structure, and get everything ready for launch. If you're writing emails for them, you could write a welcome email sequence, create a bunch of email templates, set up some basic email automations for new leads that come in. The key is to actually pick one thing that you can finish and show them by the end of the 7 days. Here's a real example of what my quick win was. For the barbershop, I focused on getting the ad campaigns ready to launch. In 3 days, I set up the meta pixel to his booking page, tested it, made sure it worked. I created 5 different ad copy variations with different angles for different avatars, and I made 8 different ad creatives. I set up all the ad campaign structure with targeting and budgets, and when I showed him everything on day 7, he was really impressed. He could see everything was ready to go, it looked professional, I'd actually done what I said I would do, and that early confidence builder kept him from second guessing me when I launched and started testing the ads. All right, so let's recap the first week. Day 1 through 2 is the deep dive. This is where you're going to send the questionnaire, research their competitors, and document the baseline. Days 3 through 4 are the strategy session. This is where you're going to create the strategy doc, get approval, and confirm everything in writing. Days 5 through 7 is where you're going to deliver something visible. Now, this framework works for any client, regardless of what service you're offering. But a lot of beginners will ask me, well, Alex, this looks like a ton of work for week one. Why don't I just get started and start running ads? All right, let's think about this. Imagine you're a client and you just hired someone. Week one, they immediately start spending your money. No research, no plan, no communication about what they're doing or why they're doing it. How long before you fired this person? Now, imagine if a doctor walked in and said, I'm removing your appendix without asking any questions, running any tests, or explaining why. Well, you'd probably just run. And this is what it feels like to a client when you skip week one. The real risk isn't spending 3 days on research, it's losing $24,000 a year in client retainers because you looked unprepared. Week one isn't extra work, it's the work that keeps them as clients.